Hi everybody, welcome back. Good to be with you again. Today I wanted to read a bit out of a historical treaty of the travels of Noah into Europe, basically the first inhabitants and people thereof. I've got loads and loads of tabs open, and I'm not going to be able to read it all, but I do strongly encourage everyone to download this and read this as well, but I'll try and read the bits that I find quite interesting and important out. The first page, you can't really read anything because the front page is soaked through the ink and it just made it difficult, but we'll start up here anyway. So somebody lived in a city called Enos, which was the first city in the world and was built by Cain, the son of Adam, at the foot of the mountain Libanus, at the land of Syria, and in the particular province of Phoenicia, not far from the famous city of Jerusalem, situated in the Holy Land. In this city of Enos, and in many others thereabouts, inhabited and lived many most deformed, fierce, and terrible giants, who by reason of their unmatchable strength and indomitable powerfulness ruled and overswayed all those people thereabouts at their pleasure, committing many odious and ungodly deeds, and living a most dissolute and vicious life, engorging their luxurious appetites with vertets of adultery and libidinous conversation, as void of shame, the law of nature, and the fear of God. In these times, many very learned astronomers and wise soothsayers gave out prophetical divinations of sudden approaching destruction of the universal world, which their forewarning prognostications they engraved and cut forth in pillars of marble and stone monuments to signify thereby unto the world their knowledge of such future happening accidents. All this notwithstanding, these obstinate and hardened giants preserved their impious and detestable practices, tyrannizing and oppressing without all measure, addicting themselves to the finding out of weapons, shields, and other warlike accoutrements, as also the making of tents, pavilions, and such like expeditions necessities for the field, wholly excluding all thoughts of any alteration or change to ensue. Only the good giant Noah, among all the rest, feared God and was obedient to his laws, which all the rest of his family and household, which is Titaea, his wife. Yeah, so although these are the giants, there was giants compared to them as well. But obviously Noah is a giant to us now, compared to him. Yeah, if he was 60 odd foot and we're 6 odd feet, he's around 10 times taller than what we are today. And he lived, 4,000 years ago? So yeah, his wife Titaea, Shem, Cham, and Japhet, and the children, are the children, and I can't read that. Is that Yondava, Nocta, and Nogola, or Noegla? The wives, all which Noah instructed in modesty, and in good manners, and in reverence and fear of the sovereign Creator. He, therefore, as by divine commandment, as by the science of astronomy, by which he gathered the overthrow and the conclusion of the world, began to frame and fashion that huge ship or ark which we so often read of in Holy Scriptures, and which was appointed from above to be the means of salvation and preservation of the humankind. Noah, when he saw this general inundation to approach and show itself, conceived him and his family into this ark, when presently all the world and all the things else therein, this excepted, were overwhelmed and subverted under the raging lure of so strange and all-devouring deluge. And this was performed on the 18th day of April, in the 600th year of the age of Noah. And here too was the accustomed first age of the world, according as someone the Jew in his computations affirmeth. So it goes into, I suppose, a bit of detail about the times, according to his understanding when he wrote the book and the knowledge that he had access to. So I can't read all of it, and I'll probably miss bits that I really wanted to read as well, because there's just so much information in here. But if you do read it yourself, you'll find loads of stuff in it. So, what was it over there? Oh. So, Great Regina Pandora and Thetis. Some authors do alleged more. So yeah, it's saying here that Noah had around 30 children. Where was it? Through the midst of the run of the two famous rivers Tigris and Euphrates, all of which countries hereafter is history as large as bespoken. As is written, Noah begat of his wife Titaea after the flood 30 children. Some think Tuscan, the giant, Prometheus, Iaptus, Macrus, and the 16 Titans, which were giants also. Cranus, Cranial, Oceanus, and Typhus. Although these Titans, as we know, Titans were the giants, the great giants in our understanding, these would have been shorter than Noah still. Anyway, these would have been the 30 feet ones I was talking about in my last video, likely. Araxa, surnamed the Great Regina, Pandora, Grena, and Thetis. Some authors do allege more, but for the brevity's sake will not further contend with their opinions. Noah, thus living in Armenia, instructed these his children in the knowledge of sacred theology and the rites belonging to religion and holy sacrifices, as also the understanding of human manners and secrecies of nature, of which he himself had composed many books, which afterwards the priests and churchmen of Scythia and Armenia preserved and kept in great regard and reverence. So yeah, so it's saying basically Noah started everything off in Armenia, and of all the understanding he built again and wrote books of after the flood, basically the Scythians, Armenians, Scythians in Tartaria. So so that would make sense as to why they all lived in tents, and you know, if that was a holy place where they had a lot of knowledge and understanding, of course, looking at how the world is now, that truth gets destroyed and covered up. In them days, or a few hundred years back, sorry, very likely that they could have had a lot of good knowledge there, and it had to be destroyed for the sake of the people that rule now. Maybe, I don't know. So, talking about him in Noah in the Scythian language, led among the Scythians the Ogyges saga, which, interpreted from the Scythian language, signifies as much as great patriarch, sovereign priest, and mighty sacrificer. It's talking about, Berosus. Berosus, firmly saying, Prinium, Latin. He also taught and instructed them the knowledge, of course, of the planets. He divided the year into 12 months, according to the course and the circumference of the moon. He also, by his study of astronomy and observance of the celestial motions, could prognosticate of the alterations of weather in the year succeeding, for which causes the Scythians and Armenians very highly honoured him, thinking him to take in the divine nature of the supernal knowledge. Excuse me. And therefore called him Olibama and Asa, which is much to say heaven and the sun. And afterwards they built many great cities and names after his wife Titaea. So in my last video, when I was talking about Noah surviving the flood and one of his sons falling away, and I think I mentioned briefly in it was his firstborn, but it weren't his firstborn. It was Cham. So I think Shem was his firstborn, but Cham. Anyway, I won't give my opinions on these guys. I'll just read. Among all the sons, Noah, Cham was the least to his father's favour, who also, by reason of his magic art, wherein he had great knowledge, was called Zoroaster, who only gave himself over unto the incivility and rude behaviours, following the abominations and vices of those horrible giants before the flood. He, as hating his own father, for that he saw himself least beloved of him, as he saw him thus lying drunk, using some charms of enchantment, took now the time of revenge, and by his magic so bewitched his father in those places of generation, that he disabled him ever after to have use of women, or to get more children. For these and other such detestable impieties, he incurred the wrath and displeasure of God in most grievous manner, and was afterward banished from his father, who afflicted him with no more punishment therein for such his unnatural deed so committed. So hurricane thought the succession of time so much increased and multiplied. So over time there was just loads of them. They were now enforced to seek out some new habitations and places of abode, whereupon the good patriarch Noah, surnamed Janus began to exhort the princes and the chiefs of his family to themselves in search for other countries and places of residence, and there to build and erect villages and cities for the society of human conservation. And he thus allotted to them their regions and quarters, where the population inhabit. To Sem, surnamed Melchizedek, he appointed Asia the Great, which in itself contains half of the world, and he had with him in his company rulers of his family. He afterwards built the city of Salem, and which is now called Jerusalem, and he lived even until the time of Abraham. Unto Japhet, his brother, was allotted Europe, and he had with him 14 rulers of his generation. And unto these two Noah bequeathed his blessing most amply, according to the scripture maketh mention. As for Cham, although he was out of grace with his father, yet had he his inheritance also allotted to him, which was the other third part of the world, as hereafter shall be spoken of. So it's Africa, basically. Friar John Annaeus of Viterbe, the expositor of Orpha doth recite that Philo the Jew, another very ancient author, doth write that in the 100th year after the deluge, Noah, to show and instruct his children in cosmography, went up onto the mountains which overlook the Pontic Sea, as part of which we now call Mare Mediterranean, and there showed unto his sons Sem, all Asiatic seas, from the Flautanes in Tartaria, and unto the river Nilus in Egypt. Unto Ham he showed all the rivers issuing from the Sea of Africa, and from thence through Egypt to the Straits of Gibraltar, and to Japhet all the rivers and floods of Europe, passing from those straits through Spain, France, and Italy, and those countries round about, in which country of Italy Noah also afterwards arrived, and left behind him certain of his people in that part of the country where Rome was long after built, which was 800 years after the flood. From thence he passed unto the coast of Greece, and entered into the straits leading to Constantinople by the sea, called Mare Major, and so again to the floods of Tanais in Tartaria. from whence he first set forth. It is to be noted that he passed through all those countries. He always left people behind him to inhabit them and increase those countries, distributing unto every number certain quarters to remain in. And after his time, in short space, many countries were again re-inhabited and peopled afresh, which since the flood were desolate and lay naked and depopulate. About 21st year after his return from his voyage, Noah began to divide kingdoms and also to erect monarchies in the world, of which the first, the monarch of Babylon, over the which Nembrath the giant, the son of his nephew Cush, maybe Cush, I don't know, who was the son of Ham, was first of all established in the 101 and 30th year of the inundation, and he was called first Saturn, or king of Babylon, or king of Babylonians, and Assyrians, who afterwards in the fair Campania, called Sennaar, laid the foundation and erected the great tower and city of Babel, which he had caused to be built even to the height of the highest mountains. But afterwards, by the confusion and languages, it was given over and left unfinished. Nembrath after this lived in peace Nembrath after this lived in peace and tranquility 56 years. Not many years after the setting up of the monarchy of Babylon, Noah divided 4 particular kingdoms in Europe: the kingdom of Italy, Spain, France, and Almain. For the Italy reigned Commodus Gallus, the eldest son of Japhet, and in Spain ruled Tubal, also Imbal, the 15th son of Japhet. In France, Samothrace, surnamed Dis, Japhet's 4th son, and over Almain, now called Germany, governed the giant Tuscan, one of the sons of Noah. And so likewise in many other places of the world were several governments and kingdoms then erected, which now to recite were ridiculous and impertinent to propose, and every one of them a long time kept, and were content with their quarters so allotted unto them, and imposed laws and edicts unto their people, and they called country after their own name, as also many mountains, rivers, towns were so intermed, and to the end that all succeeding posterity might know by what means and by whom such cities and other monuments received their first ground and foundation. So after these kingdoms and governments were erected, and the earth now again well peopled, Noah now undertaketh his second voyage into Europe, leaving Sabbatius Saga, his nephew, and brother to Nembrath, king of Babylon, to govern and command over the country of Armenia. From thence he now departeth with purpose to visit his children and to know their estates. And this Sabbatius Saga, called also Saturn, had all the country, even unto the land of Bactria, lying towards India, at this day called Tartaria, under his rule and authority. These things at home thus established, Noah surnamed Yaris, with his wife Noah surnamed Janus, with his wife Tatea, and many multitudes of people besides, began his voyage, which was 89 years after the flood. And in the 8th and 30th year, in the reign of Nembrath, towards Hyrcania, which he then peopled and called them after his own name, Yanij. From thence he came to Mesopotamia, where also he left behind him many people to inhabit, and from thence attained the country called Arabia, Felix. And he erected 2 cities, one called Noah and the other Yaninia, furnishing them with inhabitants after he passed through. Thence and came to Africa, which part of the world he first assigned unto the governments and sovereignty of his second son Ham. But at the time They ruled Triton, the son of Saba, which was the son of Cush, the eldest son of the same Ham. This Tristan received Noah and his company with great joy and gladness of heart. And he feasted, and he stayed there half a year, in which time Triton died and left his son Hammon, the inherior, to the kingdom of Africa, otherwise called Libya. After this, Noah passed forward to length arrived in Spain, which was 259 years after the flood, and the year in the reign of Ninus, the third king of Babylon. Jubal and Tubal, the first son of Japhet, the first king of Spain, as the histories do affirm, received of his grandfather Noah Janus, and his grandmother Taitea, with honourable entertainment and all glad willingness, who also were exceeding joyful to see the prosperous estate of their nephew Jubal. For so much as they found that he governed his people with great justice and policy and good laws, and Berosus in a certain place alleged saying something in Latin that I can't read. Noah, therefore, his nephew, for the better people of his country, founded the two great cities, calling one Noah and the other Noegla, in remembrance and honour of those two Sate daughters, being the wives of Japhet and Ham. And after his departed for Italy to his nephew or grandchild, Comerus Gallus, the first son of Japhet, who before had appointed to be king of that country. So I've just noticed I'm actually just going through reading it, and I've got 3 whole strips of bits to read. This might be more than one video. So yeah, it goes on about how he's going around repopulating, and as you can see, his 3 sons took leadership between Asia, Africa and Europe, and he obviously was in the centre of it all and kept going out on voyages, spreading out knowledge and people. And it makes me wonder, you know how in some of the past videos where we're showing Starthought Foundation plans, drawings and stuff of massive beautiful foundations for cities, see, they could have been built for the likes of Noah's sons, by them and for them, so they could have been foundations for a small town for people of that size. But as we've got smaller over time, you know, it becomes bigger to us and looks like we can fit whole cities in them. This goes on about, it's really interesting. It just goes on about the stories of all their lives and who rules where and how Rome comes into being and stuff like that. But so I'd got past that, got page 9, so I've already read that. So here we are. Astronomy. So yeah. Still talking about Noah going around. Florence, down to Sardinia, Noah caused to be inhabited and made populous in those something, wherein also he built and erected many most beautiful cities, which he called Arin, Janus, Idest, Exiano, Altasus. And he began then to write and set laws and instructions of the civil administration of justice and government and commonwealth, which he first prescribed to the city of Betallonia, since called Viterbe, and instructed the people also the sciences of physic, astronomy, divinity, I don't know, and the Centonianos, Cetenionius. Oh my God, who made these words up? Rites and customs belonging to the holy sacrifices. And of these also he made many and several books. Mentioned before that Noah departed out of Armenia, and he continued, and something his nephew Sabatius Saga, surnamed Saturn, to rule and king and patriarch over the country, wherein he afterwards reigned peaceably, until even the reign of Jupiter, Jupiter Belus, the son of Nembroth, the second king of Babylon, who yielded unto his discordant desires, and coveting to command as sole monarch of the whole world, was first violator of and infringer of the ordinances appointed in those days, by whose means the Golden Age afterwards lost such her title. So this is saying that the Golden Age was, it was about the time of the pharaohs and stuff, and post flood. Anyway, pointed to those dates, and by whose means the Golden Age afterwards lost such her title, and never since was so. For before such his over haughty humours, all things were peaceable, common, and free. So yes, once upon a time, everything was free, everything was good, everything was awesome. This Jupiter endeavoured by all devices possible to overturn the greatness of Sabatius Saga, surnamed Saturn. Commanded also his son Ninus to undertake all means how to bring him and his family to death and destruction, which thing they jointly effectuated, for so far as hardly escaped he in the snares and subtleties laid to entrap him. Saturn, therefore, seeing himself lying in those dangerous and casualties to be, this is so difficult to read, unto his grandfather Noah, there hoping to be protected, safeguarded, and defended, which thing also Virgil thus remembered, something Saturn, Olympi arms. Noah according to blah blah, I can't read that. Titaea the Great, Noah's wife, began in those times first to let up the order of nuns and ceremonies of Vestal virgins, inventing then the setting up and lights and lamps in the churches and temples dedicated to the profession of virginity and chastity, which custom was in those days very reverent regarded, and endured in great honour and reputation, even unto the time of the Romans. Saturn likewise very painfully instructed the people of the village, and in the nature of soils, wherein he had great skill and knowledge, and also the ceremonies of religion. Not long after, having instructed his son Sabius to be the successor of the kingdom of the Sabines and Aboriginals, he died, and something 340 years after the inundation of the world. And the very same year also Noah, Janus, finding and perceiving his end approach, and now that his life and vigour of spirits began to strike and decrease, he rated one of his sons, called Cranus, the king and patriarch over the Ianiges, which are now called the Tuscanies. And the 6th year after he departed his life, and gave up to his noble and heroic spirit, which after he something in Italy 62 years, and afterwards 346 years before the foundation of Troy, 480, and before the incarnation of Christ 1970 years, and in the age of the same Noah 950. The death of this good king and patriarch possessed almost all the people of the world with great sorrow and lamentation, and especially in the Armenians and Italians, who in most honourable manner celebrated his obsequies with such their then used rites and ceremonies, and afterwards dedicated and attributed unto him divine honours and godlike adoration, building and consecrating temples and holy altars unto him, calling him by divers and several names and titles, as the sun, the heaven, the seed of the world, the father of the gods, the soul of the world, the God of peace, the giver of justice and holiness, the expolier of things here full. Also their children and successors called him Janus, Geminus, Quadrasons, Enosimus, Ogyges, Virtumus, Vadimon, Protheus, Multisaurs, something else, and Jupiter. They invented all manner of honours. It's very difficult to read. So I haven't put them forth on the keys in hand. Can't read that very well. So what page are we at? 12. Right, so I've not even got 1/3 of the way through my tabs, and the video's only got about a minute or so left. So I'll definitely do another video, but I'll just read a little bit more while I can. And as Noah was among these ancients, honoured and adored, and temples and altars consecrated unto him, so also was Tatea his wife, held in great reverence, worship, and holy esteem, who was also Vesta, Aritia, Terra, Regina, Sacrorum, Magna Sibels, Matricu Diorum, I can't read, at Q Vestalium, Princept 5 Abitisba, and Berosus and other writers affirm, having thus touched the death of his good patriarch Noah, shall be now impertinent, something to remember and please, and speak of the wicked and abominable life of his degenerate son Ham, which although of itself it be worthless in any recapitulation or recital, yet he defended to the lineal genealogy Libyan Hercules the Great. It cannot be well omitted, from which Hercules, Dardanius, the first founder and erector of Troy, descended and came. So yeah, this first book was basically the story of Noah until his death, repopulating the world until his death. The next one I'll do will be starting on talking about Ham and what happened to him and his descendants, and then we'll go from there. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll speak to you all soon. God bless.